Because it's Mo, it's different now than when you and I.
It's different, baby. I'm grateful I'm not 56 and trying.
Are you trying to say what you trying to say? Mo?
I'm looking right at you.
I know you looking at me.
That's what Shannon needs. You don't need no 26-year-old girl. You don't need no 36-year-old girl.
I know.
Not just that I'm older, I'm also very embodied. I am a full, very whole person who knows myself. So it's not just age, it's like life experience and sort of a difference. But I had to ask myself the question, why? Why does this keep sort of coming up other than they're hot and gorgeous? But a lot of men my age are steeped in a toxic masculinity and have been raised in a culture where there is a particular way that a relationship looks. Did enough of it where I was controld and felt like I was a possession or whatever those things were, or prize, I have no interest.
Hello, lovely people. Welcome back to my channel where I talk about the importance of personal development, leveling up, and also just the lessons that I have learned throughout the course of my life. Now, normally I stick to that category of discussion, but something told me to dive into a conversation that has sparked an intense debate across social media. And that's the discussion between Tracy Ellis Ross and Shannon Sharpe in terms of age gap relationships, as well as the repercussions of these personal choices. On one side, you have Tracee Ellis Ross, who is a renowned actress and daughter of the legendary Diana Ross. And she's been very candid and open on her views about relationships. And in a recent interview with Michelle Obama, she shared her thoughts on the complexities of dating, especially when the age difference is involved, right? So as you saw in the previous clip, she talks about how she tends to date younger men who are very hot and very gorgeous. And she emphasized on the fact that she is a woman with a lot of life experience. She is a woman with a lot of status. And it's not just because she is the daughter of a legendary singer, but she also has an extensive, how would I say it? She has an extensive background in terms of acting. She was in a sitcom called Girlfriends. She was in Grownish, and she has curated and cultivated a life for herself where she is whole and full without requiring a partner. On the other side of the spectrum, you have Shannon Sharpe, who is a former NFL star and host of the Club Shay Shay podcast. And he's been very vocal about his perspectives on modern relationships, and his discussions often touch on traditional values, financial dynamics, and the expectations set within partnerships. Now, for anyone who's following along on what's happening with Shannon Sharpe, a lawsuit was filed against him by a OnlyFans model. Gabriella Zaninga is her name, to be exact. So Gabriella has filed a lawsuit against Shannon Sharpe for $50 million for sexual assault. This is all alleged, by the way. And it turns out Shannon Sharpe offered her $10 million to keep quiet. Interesting. This is where it gets disturbing because Gabriella is about 21 years old. As for Shannon Sharpe, right now is 56. Shannon Sharpe met Gabriella when she was 19. So that means that he was 54, 55 years old. And that is a substantial age gap. Okay, that's over 30 years of age difference. So you have to understand that Gabriella, she's a couple years out of high school at this age. Listen to the voice exchanges between Shannon and Gabriella. She sounds like a child. So you have a grown man who's in his 50s talking to a young girl who sounds like a child. And I want to be mindful of my words so I don't get called out by YouTube here. There was some sexual exchanges between the two and a sexual encounter that was consensual. Tracee Ellis Ross emphasized the importance of understanding the power dynamics that can exist in relationships with a significant age difference. Now, we haven't heard anything about Tracee Ellis Ross and her dating in terms of these younger men, for she likes to keep a low profile. And look, props and kudos to her on that, because understand that she's in the spotlight. Many eyes are on her. And in the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, there's a law that states guard your reputation with your life. So it seems that she's doing a very good job of that. She's knowing what her boundaries are and what to speak on. And also, depending on the people that she's talking with, in this case, Michelle Obama, she felt safe with Michelle Obama to talk about the fact that, okay, I date younger guys, but what's the reasoning behind that? Because I live a very whole life. I am someone who has been well-traveled. I've built a pretty solid foundation. And she pointed out that while age gap relationships aren't inherently problematic, it's mindset. And she emphasized that older men tend to treat her like a prize and are controlling. And she doesn't want to experience that. So why not go a bit younger? They require a heightened awareness of potential imbalances, right? So in this case, when she's dating these younger men, there's a possibility that these younger guys may be threatened by her in terms of her status, in terms of where she is financially, and overall the weight that her name holds. This can result in them feeling potentially emasculated, where their masculinity is threatened, or maybe their ego takes a hit, or they could just be for a good time to have fun and then done. What if these younger guys comes out and tells some information about Tracy Ellis Ross that we may not know about? Now, we haven't seen that happen, but the point I'm making is this. This is something to be very aware of, especially if you are someone who is well known and in the spotlight. You have to be very conscientious and mindful and take time to look at what the pros are, of course, but what are the possible consequences that can come out of this? I don't think that Shannon Sharpe did any of this. Shannon Sharpe first signed with The Volume back in 2023, and he was fresh from a harsh split from Skip Bayless, as we all know. And then Shannon brought his podcast to a YouTube-focused digital media company, and he was able to launch a spinoff called Nightcap with former NFL player, what's his name? Chad Johnson Ochocinco. And then, of course, he has his podcast, which is Club Shay Shay. Now, around this time, he was headed towards free agency, and he reportedly is having a massive pay deal that is about 9 figures. So considering his position, he's worth a lot of money. Now, the thing is this, when you make an abundant amount of money, especially if you're a man, you have to be very careful with how you move, the types of people you're engaging with, as well as the people that are around you. And it seems that in this case, Shannon Sharpe didn't really think of potential consequences because he was so blinded by his payday and his status as a man. And let's also factor in that Shannon Sharpe is a black man, and he's also a former NFL player. Now, if you look at NFL players, the average career span for them is about 3 years. And then what happens is that they tend to go broke due to poor spending habits, not managing their money well, or I'm going to say it, they have baby mama issues and the obvious injuries. In Shannon Sharpe's case, he was able to find additional outlets where he could not only make money, but also continue his legacy. And you would think that he would be more conscientious and aware of the types of behaviors that he could potentially engage in. And what's interesting is that it was Cat Williams and Monique who sat across from him on his own podcast and proceeded to warn him about his dating choices, because this man is damn near 60. He's never been married. He's got a couple baby mamas that I'm not sure why he didn't marry one of them. And he has children who are in their 30s. They're roughly around my age. So why is he going after younger women in their 20s? Well, this is my theory. It's because these women give men like Shannon Sharpe a sense of power, dominance, and control. When a man reaches a certain level of success financially, he tends to go after the women that he really wants, that he couldn't get access to when he wasn't as financially blessed. And what that does, it opens up his options where he has multiple women to choose from. And honestly, it can become addictive. I actually met Shannon Sharpe back in 2019 in Los Angeles on Rodeo Drive at a Louis Vuitton exhibit. We had a quick exchange. It was cool. I'm not siding with the guy under any circumstance. But the point I want to emphasize is this. Seeing him in person, I already knew what his preference was in women. It was women that were younger and women that were on the complexion spectrum that were in closer proximity to whiteness. This is a very common pattern that I notice with Black men, particularly when they become successful. They go after the women that they want, and the women that they truly want are women who are light skinned or white, because to them, whiteness means status and power. Now, this is where the consequences come into play. If that's their preference, that's fine. But with that is a scenario that could manifest into what we're seeing right now with Shannon Sharpe, where you have a white woman who is a SMEX worker coming forward, wanting money from him and putting him in a position where, look, this is what he did to me. These are the things that he said. He made some very violent remarks, and also he likes to engage in race play. Now, I'm not going to go into detail in terms of what that is, but understand that when you are a Black man and you become successful and you go after the preference of women that you want, there needs to be a moment where you have to think of the consequences, the possible scenarios, okay, socially, that is, and racially. Do you think Shannon Sharpe thought about that at all? Absolutely not, because also consider this, white women have more power, especially in their communities. They can lean on resources, they can lean on the people and the men in their communities. And also the power dynamic is that, okay, you have Shannon Sharpe who's got a lot of money. The relationship is going to be transactional, nothing more, nothing less. And that's where Shannon missed the mark on that. He saw that she was young and that she's an S worker. And Cat Williams briefly touched on this during his interview with Shannon Sharpe last year.
I didn't want to get with a white woman because I was scared she might have me running down the street like Jonathan Majors.
There you go. See, come on, Cat.
Not because I didn't like white women. I think white women are as great as any other women. But I'm not gonna act like I'm not scared of them. I have a reason to be scared. You could be Kang the Conqueror, and they could take your rabbit ass down in 2 weekends. And that's the truth of the matter.
Whether you are Shannon Sharpe or Tracy Ellis Ross, you are responsible for looking at the consequences, scenarios, and possible hurdles that can come with your dating choices. Not lead with lust and putting your pleasure at the forefront as opposed to your purpose, because that same pleasure can get in the way of your purpose and what you have created and crafted for yourself in terms of your legacy. And now we're seeing that Shannon Sharpe has tarnished his reputation so bad to the point where he had to temporarily step down from ESPN because of the intensity of this lawsuit. And with lawsuits like this, you know more information is going to come out, where his reputation, his character, and his entire persona will be on the line. With Tracy Ellis Ross, on the other hand, I commend her for her honesty. And it seems that she is doing her part to preserve herself and moving with intention, and is actively vetting her romantic partners because, again, her name carries so much weight, and that she is being mindful of every step and move that she takes. She seems to have a strategy laid out for herself that I'm sure took years for her to cultivate, and I'm sure a lot of mistakes were made along the way. What matters is that those mistakes are learned the first time, accountability is taken, and you're able to accumulate that and use it as wisdom to propel you forward so that it doesn't occur again. And now it's being brought to my attention that another ex-girlfriend of Shannon Sharpe by the name of Michelle Evans is filing a $4 million lawsuit against him. So do you see how the domino effect is happening? If one woman comes forward, another woman's coming forward, and another one. We saw this with Tiger Woods when he had his scandal where he had multiple affairs with a multitude of women. And one by one, more women came forward. So when Tracee Ellis Ross made that comment about the men in her age group, Shannon Sharpe is proving it. And we're about to watch it unfold. Those few minutes of pleasure can potentially destroy everything that you have created and cultivated and set up for yourself. And it is on you to guard your reputation with your entire livelihood. The point is this: never mess with someone who has less to lose than you. What are your thoughts on this situation with Shannon Sharpe? And also, what are your thoughts on what Tracy Ellis Ross talked about with Michelle Obama? Do you believe that societal standards are shifting? Would love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful discussions. See you in the next video.